Greetings! I'm here to show you a introductory video on how to convert a test bank from a Word document, or in this case a rich text format document which is used for WordPad, into an Examview bank for eventual export to D2L or just use in Examview. What this will do is create an exam bank, not a test. To create the test, you'll have to create the test through Examview's test generator, which will look at that bank, and you can select your tests as per normal. Those of you that are familiar with this are probably just fine with it as it is. What you're going to need for this process is, first of all, an RTF file that is pre-formatted. I'm going to show you a whole lot more about that in a minute. The other thing you're going to need is a utility that comes with Examview's suite, which is called Examview Import Utility, and it has the blue icon like this. I've just pulled a shortcut onto my desktop. I have this open already because it has a few presets that need to be set up in the program. And another thing that's going to be useful to you is this PDF document, which I'm going to open in another window and drag over so you can see it. And this is the user guide, and it is a PDF document, and it has information in it for how to format tests to or RTF files for import into Examview. So if I go, hopefully this is not going to freeze up on me. Looks like it might. Usually if I just wait for a moment, it's okay. So publish a test in Learning Center, online tests, creating a test. So what we're looking for in the instructions here is import questions from CPS, import questions from a word processor. This section in here, entering in your own questions. Import is what you're after, and that looks like I have to go to page 27, so I'm just going to rip down there real quick. So in this you will see that you can simply do the usual working within the exam test bank generator, or you can import questions, and this is probably the easiest way to do it if you're working in bulk, importing questions from a word processor. There's a step-by-step instructions in this guide on how to format those, and I also have a couple of sample tests that you're welcome to look at to see what needs to be done in order for Examview to import them correctly. It's not that tough, but once you, after you've done it a few times, but there's a few do's and don'ts that are good to read in this document. Please feel free to contact me by email to have a look at this if you don't already have it. And of course that is my contact info. I'm just going to put on the screen for a second. You can pause this video and write that down, or just simply drop me an email, and I'll be happy to send you a link to any of the so you don't have to type this whole thing in. It's quite long. Okay, moving on. So let's just have a look at a raw test bank that I have pre-formatted and gotten ready for preparation in import. Now, right now I'm showing all of the characters, so let's just look at that. This was created actually in WordPad, which is what I prefer to use for creating RTF files, or rich text format files, because it is simpler and tends not to put hidden characters or anything else that I don't want in there, which can kind of mess up the way the bank imports. First of all, at the top you need a title. Well, actually you don't need a title, but you do need an identifier that tells the import utility that the following questions are going to be multiple choice, so it knows what to expect. That one's critical. You can have a title in text above this, one line. Like I said, read the formatting guideline, and it'll help you with that. One of the issues that sometimes people have is questions that are going to have graphics or pictures in them. They're not tough to do at all. I'm going to use this example and show you how I go about importing them. There's probably a number of ways to get to Rome here, but what I do is I will select the question and basically put my cursor below the question body and insert a picture. And I'm kind of all set up for this here. Desktop and how to create Examview banks. There's a picture that I prepared. I'm going to insert that. So that's in my Word document, or in this case, yeah, this is a Word document. And there's the picture. Now that you can change the size however you like or format them, but you can also do that later in Examview, and it's actually easier to do that way if you do it within the Examview bank editor. So I generally don't mess around with them too much because they look quite different in Examview than they do in the Word doc, so you're just going to end up formatting it twice. So don't. And then save that document, any changes to it. A couple of other items that you want to see is notice that I don't have any space between the parentheses or bracket here and the first character in the question. I found that that works best for me. I've gotten away with it before with spaces in there, but I find that it works much better without, more reliably. So Examview does kind of freak out when it sees spaces where it doesn't expect them. The next thing you'll see is the delimiters for the choices below, lowercase and dot. Now you can change that in the preferences, which I will show you when we get to the import utility, to various other means like a colon, a comma, etc. But this is the format that I have chosen and it works for me. Then below the answer choices you have to have an uppercase ANS, which it delimitates or indicates to Examview that it's going to be the answer field, a colon, and then the letter that is the correct choice for that particular question. There are other fields that you can enter as well. The marks, it defaults to 1 otherwise, if you don't already put the points value in there. Some of my RTFs already have that in, but I found I don't need them because it automatically assumes it's 1 point per question, and that works for the way I do tests. The objective in this case is HVAC. You can put whatever objective you like in there. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'll just put down come on. This is one of the reasons I don't like Word, is it brings things up in my way. Test objective. So it could be basically anything you want in there that'll help search the field, and you can select questions based on that field. But that more later. That's an Examview thing rather than a import utility thing. So anyway, there it is, and of course save. And I recommend closing the file as well because it does tend to not like, of course I want to save it, I just did. It doesn't like when documents are open and you try to import them, so let's not make it do anything that it doesn't like. Alright, so I told you I've already got this open in another window, and I will just drag that over so you can have a look at it. And I did finish doing an import a minute ago. Alright, so I'm in the utility, and I'm just going to go New Import so I get rid of that screen. This is what you see when you first open the import wizard up. And you hit Next. Now, this is important. These are the areas, first of all, this bottom file folder is where Examview is going to save the bank to. And it always defaults to C, Examview, and a subfolder in there, Banks. That's where its default folder is. Now, you don't have to use that folder. And I recommend you don't. I recommend you doing all your work on the desktop, so that you know where the files go. But if you do lose your file, look in C, Examview, right in the root of C, and banks is where it'll be. Now this is the folder that's on my desktop that I'm going to use, or the file. So I'm going to click that. Now, what about these, you might ask? This is where we're looking for the folders to add to our to import. And so if you double click it, it puts it down in this window ready to import. Okay, so it's going to go to my desktop, and it's coming from the desktop file that I've brought up. Then you hit next, and you get a bunch of things to answer. I prefer to have all my multiple choices in one column, so I set the default to 1. If you have matching questions, same thing. Require multiple choices, answers, choices to follow a carriage return. I don't bother checking that. It's never bothered me. Then you hit next. It asks you, gives you choices for the font that you want it to be in. You can change this later in Examview if you want, and change it in mass like the entire bank. Multiple choice uses columns, so I've left it at that. Hit next. Almost all the default values are fine. This is showing you the keywords that we're going to use to tell Examview that the questions that follow will be multiple choice, true or false, etc. And and those are all good. You shouldn't have to change those. And now we're ready. So the last button push will be finish, and this is how you know things have gone okay. First of all, the import is done. It says the question bank exists, but that's fine. We're going to replace it. Normally it won't ask you that. And it says the import is complete. So now you can minimize your import utility. I don't suggest closing it because you'll lose all your default values. And now we're going to look for the file on my desktop. I have other screens open, so I will drag it in to where it ended up on my other screen. And we will open the bank, and it will open in Examview Test Bank Manager as soon as I actually double click on it. And Examview has a habit of making you wait a few seconds before you can actually see what you're opening. But there it is. Notice it says no title found. If there was a title before the multiple choice in the original RTF, it would have put it right there. Now we see our questions, and these are all in Examview format. Notice that the points came up. Notice that my objective that I typed in for this question came up as it was. And the whole bank is there of 25 questions. Marvelous. So now those mean I can edit those in this bank editor if I want to. For instance, I might open the second question here, and my window is opening in another screen, so it opens like that, and I can edit that within this window. And I can also, if I want to change the information that's this is not being very, I'll have to shrink this down so I can get it all on the screen. If I want to change the information, that's where my learning objective is. I don't really want to change this one, but I can copy it. And I suggest that if you are using objective labels, that you always copy one that you like, and using the Control-C, because it doesn't give you a copy right-click option. And that way you will always get exactly the same format, and it just looks neater. So I just go OK. I haven't made any changes, but I'm going to hit record anyway. So now I can edit the other question. Info. Test objective now becomes HVAC. And go OK. And record. And it's advisable, of course, to save this bank once you've made any changes that you have. So just press save and save it. Now the next step, of course, would be exporting to a Blackboard 6.0 format for preparation to importing it into D2L. And I do have a companion video that's already been produced that shows that, but this is the format that you will use as Blackboard 6.0, and you can do it right from the Bank Manager. I may as well just whip through that real quick. And it's going to save, it asks you where to save the file, and of course, just like always, I'm going to save it in something that makes some sense to me. And I'll have to give it a file name. This will be test export. And it's going to be a zipped folder. Now, this is very unsatisfying. You hit save, and oh well, there's a couple of things. It does ask you for pool information, which is something that D2L is going to use. And I usually give it the same name as the question banks or question library main folder that I use in D2L, and that will be quizzes. And it also asks me where to save questions that are unique to this question, or pictures that are unique to this question pool, and that is pretty important too, because otherwise what Examview does is assigns default number or numeric names for picture files, and depending on how many picture files you have, if you put them into just a main directory with all the other ones that you've ever created, you will have duplicate file names in there, and it may overwrite a picture that's being used in another exam with a picture you don't want to use. So it's always good to keep them in separate directories. So I'm going to put this as commercial refrigeration, and you can find those if it doesn't work out in the import, you can find that picture very easily by looking in the picture folders that are in D2L, and look for your title of the. You usually have it something to do the same as the test title. Okay, so that is that. I just simply hit done, and it just goes back to this image that's shown here, and it almost seems like nothing happened. You kind of expect something else to occur after that, so you minimize your picture, and if you look on your desktop in the folder you asked it to save it in, you will see test export, and it's a zipped folder all ready to import into into D2L. So that if I open that up, this is my zip file archiver, and this is what it looks like in there. It's all kind of Greek to me. When you look at it, it doesn't really give you an awful lot of, you can't really recognize the files, but this is the folder in which the picture has been saved in there. But don't worry about rearranging any of this, but notice that this is the name of the picture file, MC001-1, and that will, every time you do an import, it will rename any of the image files this generic kind of name, MC, and that stands for multiple choice, and the number in the question library. So you're going to have a whole lot of multiple choice tests in there, and whole lots of pictures that will end up being named 001-1, and then of course the next one would be 001-2, or 002-1, depending on how many pictures you're using. So anyway, don't mess with this zip folder. Just leave it as it is. It's all ready to import into D2L just like that. So refer to my other video for more detailed instructions on that. Unfortunately, it wasn't the best video I've made, but it probably will suffice. Anyway, that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I will respond with any files you need or any answers. Thanks. Bye-bye.